Okay, so let's do some review for Chapter 4. So we'll begin talking about writing equations in slope-intercept form. So on number 11 and 13, the directions are to write an equation in slope-intercept form for the line that passes through the given point and has the given slope. So we have the point 2, -6, and a slope of -4. Now, in my opinion, the quickest way and the simplest way to do this is to actually start by writing the line in point slope form. That's the y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I do y minus -6, which makes it plus 6. Plug in the slope, which is -4. Do x minus 2, that's my x value. And then to get from the point slope form to the slope intercept form, I first distribute -4 times -2 is +8. Then I subtract 6 from both sides to get the y by itself. So I get y equals -4x plus 2. Okay. 13. Same process we'll use. We have a point of 5, -2, and a slope of -1/3. So we do y plus 2, because it's minus -2, equals -1/3 times x minus 5. So I distribute the -1/3 in. So -1 times -5 is +5. We put that over 3. Okay, then the last step is to subtract 2 from both sides. And in your calculator, you can just do 5 divided by 3, hit enter, then subtract 2, and you'll get -0.3 repeating, which is the same as -1/3. Now, if you put -0.33, that's fine with me. I'll accept the decimal as well. Okay, for 15 and 17, we're still trying to write the slope-intercept form, but this time they're only giving us they're giving us 2 points instead of giving us the slope. So there's an extra step we have to do here because we have to start by finding the slope. So for that, we use the slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. 13 minus 3 is 10. I'll write m equals right here. This is really 1 plus 4, which is 5. And 10 divided by 5 is 2. And you can choose either one of these points. I'll just use the first point. So you use the first point and the slope and put it back into point slope form. So at this stage, we're now doing it identically to what we did in 11 and 13 because we have a slope and a point. And again, you're allowed to use either point. I'm just choosing to use this one on the left. So I do y minus 3 equals 2 times x plus 4. I distribute the 2. And then add 3 to both sides. So y equals 2x plus 11. And we'll follow that same series of steps in number 17. The 2 points they give us are Ch.4 and 7.2. So because they did not give us the slope, we have to use these 2 points and the slope formula to find the slope. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. 2 minus 4 is -2. 7 minus 2 is 5. So our slope is -2/5. So I'm going to choose to use the first point again, but it's truly optional whichever one you use. I'll do y minus 4 equals negative 2 over 5 times x minus 2. We distribute the negative 2/5. Negative 2/5 x, and then just treat this as a 2 over 1. So negative 2 times the negative 2 is positive 4, and 5 times 1 is 5. And if you want to use the decimal here and say it's 0.8, that would be fine. So then we add 4 to both sides. Y equals negative 2/5 x plus, let's see, it'd be 24/5 if using a fraction, but I would accept it if you wrote plus 4.8. That's the same thing. So you can use the fraction or the decimal. In your calculator, you can just type 4 divided by 5, hit enter, then add 4, and that'll give you 4.8. So both of these are good answers. Okay, on to section 2. We're talking about point slope form and standard form. So on 19, it says write the equation in point slope form. So this one, these are pretty quick and easy. They give us a point and a slope. And we do y minus 3 equals the slope times x minus 6. And we quit there, because that's the point slope form. (21), same process, but this time we have the point negative 4, 2 and a slope of 0. So I'll do y minus 2 equals 0 times x plus 4. And 0 times anything, you can leave it this way. It is still, this is considered to be in point slope form, but I don't really like just leaving 0 times something, so I'd probably go ahead and say y minus 2 equals 0. And you can leave it like that, or if you want to add the 2 over, this is technically not in point slope form, but I would accept this as well. Okay, 23, we're told to write each equation in standard form. Okay, so in my opinion, to get something in standard form, well, let me just pause on that. Yes, to get something in standard form, we want to get rid of those parentheses. So the first thing I would do is distribute the negative 3. And I know I want the x and the y. Just a reminder, standard form looks like this. The x term has to be positive, and we cannot have any fractions. So I want to get the x over to this side, so let's add 3x over here. So I get 3x plus y minus 7 equals negative 3. So I've got the x and the y term where they need to be, but I need all the constants over here, so I'll have to add 7 to both sides. So my final answer would be 3x plus y equals 4. Sorry, they get a little crowded in there. Okay, we'll follow the same steps over here on 25. We begin with y minus 9 equals negative 4/5 times x plus 2. So the first thing I would do is distribute the negative 4/5. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. 5 times 1 is 5. Okay, now you can do things in different orders, but I know we don't want fractions. So personally, I would right now go ahead and get rid of those. And to get rid of a fraction, we have to multiply every single term by its denominator. So I got to multiply both sides entirely by 5. So 5 times y is 5y. 5 times 9 is 45. And with these two, the 5's cancel out, because this is really 5 over 1. So when I multiply it by the first term, that 5 and that 5 cancel out. leaving negative 4x. And when I multiply by this one, the 5's cancel out, leaving me with negative 8. So now I've corrected the issue we had with all the fractions. So because I'm running out of space, I'm going to try to do 2 steps at once. I need to add 4x over to this side. So I want x and y on the left. And I'll add 45 to both sides because I want all the constants on the right side. So 4x plus 5y and negative 8 plus 45 is 37. Okay, we're still in section 2. This time, though, they're asking us to write it in slope-intercept form, which we did that some already in section 1. So we distribute the negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. Then we add 12 to both sides. We get y equals negative 2x plus 18. And that's the pattern every time when you're going from point slope to slope intercept. You distribute, then add or subtract the constant with the y to get y by itself. So on 29 we have y minus 4 equals 1/2 times x plus 2. We distribute the 1/2. And then add 4 to both sides. So y equals 1/2 x plus 5. Whew, okay, that completes Chapter 4, Section 2. Okay, now we're moving on to parallel and perpendicular lines. So number 31, it wants us to write an equation that goes through the point, which is 0, 3, and is parallel to y equals 3x plus 5. Sorry, wasn't invisible. I wasn't in your vision there. So we want a line that goes through this point and is parallel to this line. So we've got to figure out what the slope of this line is. Well, when it's in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, the slope is always right here. It's the coefficient in front of x. So my slope is 3, and it goes through the point 0, 3. So I'll do y minus 3 equals the slope times x minus 0. So when I distribute the 3, I just get 3 times x, because 3 times 0 is nothing, or it's 0. Then we add 3 to both sides. So a parallel line that goes through 0, 3 is y equals 3x plus 3. Okay, same directions on number 33. It needs to travel through this point. Travel to this point and be parallel to y equals 1/2 x. So again, this is in slope-intercept form. So here's our slope. It's 1/2. So we go through the point negative 5, negative 2, and the slope of 1/2. So we do y plus 2 equals 1/2 times x plus 5. We distribute the 1/2. Just a second. I think I did make a mistake. Okay. I wrote down the wrong question. Okay, a little bit wrong anyway. So let me back up. I apologize. I did write the correct point, but then I looked at the wrong problem for the parallel part. Okay, so it goes to the point negative 5, negative 2, and is parallel to y equals negative 1/2 x plus 4. So instead of a slope of positive 1/2, we'll have a slope of negative 1/2, and that changes things. So y plus 2 equals negative 1/2 times x plus 5. So that is identical to this line up here, except it's a negative 1/2 in the slope. So I have to distribute negative 1/2 then negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. 2 times 1 is 2. Then I subtract 2 from both sides. And get y equals negative 1/2 x minus 9/2, or if you have the decimal, you can do this in the calculator and say negative 5 divided by 2, hit enter, then subtract 2, and you'll get negative 4.5. So both of these answers are good, legitimate answers. Okay, now 35, we're switching over to perpendicular. Otherwise, it's the same process, but we are doing perpendicular now. So on 35, we want to pass through the point 1, 3, but it'd be perpendicular to y equals negative 2x minus 4. So again, when we're in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, our slope's right here. So the slope of this line is negative 2, but I want to be perpendicular to this line. So I'm going to write this as a fraction, because to get the perpendicular slope, I have to flip the fraction upside down and change the sign. So since it was a negative, I make my slope a positive. So this is the slope we'll use. So I do y minus 3 equals 1/2 times x minus 1. I distribute the 1/2. Then I add 3 to both sides. You get y equals 1/2 x plus 5/2. Or, again, in your calculator, you can type in negative 1 divided by 2, hit enter, then do plus 3, and that will give you 2.5. So this answer would also be good. Either one of those forms is good. Okay, 37. We want to pass through the point 3, 0 and be perpendicular to y equals negative 1/2 x. Okay, so the slope of this line is negative 1/2. But we don't want to be the same slope. We want to do the opposite reciprocal. And so we flip it, we change the sign. So since this one was negative, we make this one positive. So our slope for the line we're creating is positive 2. So I do y minus 0 equals 2 times x minus 3. Well, y minus 0 is just y. Then I can just distribute the 2 and be finished. That completes section 3. Now let's look at section 4.4. Okay, so I'll show you this picture. Doing both the problems in this. Okay, determine whether the graph shows a positive, negative, or no correlation. So hopefully you can tell that overall, it's not a perfect line, but it doesn't have to be. Overall, the data is trending upward. So as far as what that means, it's a positive correlation. That means as the number of hours spent studying increases, the test scores also increase. And your language doesn't have to be exactly like mine, but you need to get the idea that as the hours spent studying increase, so do the test scores. So 38 is a positive correlation. I'm just repeating because I'm writing it on this paper so that I'll have it on this paper. As the number of hours of studying increases, the test scores increase as well. All right, now, number 39. A scatter plot compares the number of years since a business is opened and its annual number of sales. Okay, so they didn't give us this scatter plot. But I don't know what the scatter plot looks like. I'm guessing it probably trends up. So the idea would be years open, number of sales. Something like this. I just made up those dots, but I just wanted to have a picture of what they're talking about. So a scatter plot of data compares the number of years since a business is opened and its annual number of sales. It contains the ordered pairs 2, 650, and 5, 1280. Write an equation in slope-intercept form for the line of fit for this situation. Okay, so when we have 2 points and we're asked to do the equation of a line, you can ignore this down here, it's just the back side of my paper. We do the slope formula to find the slope, so 1280 minus 650, that's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So 1280 minus 650 will be 630, and 5 minus 2 is 3, so we get a slope of 210. So then you can pick either of these points. I'm going to pick the first point, so I'll do y minus 650 equals 210 times x minus 2. So I distribute the 210, get y minus 650 equals 210x minus 420. And then we'll add 650 to both sides. So we get y equals 210x plus 230. Now, they didn't ask this on this question, but just to give you an example, they could ask, I'm not going to solve these, but I'm going to explain how they work. They could say, predict, I'm in trouble with words here, predict sales 5 years after opening. So predict sales 5 years after opening. So if they do that, you think, okay, years since they've opened, that's my X value. Their number of sales is my Y value. So if they tell me the number of years they've been open, I would plug that in for X, and I just plug that in the calculator, 210 times 5 plus 230, and that answer would give me the number of sales expected after 5 years of being open. And if they said, predict year sales will be 3,000. Okay, that's sales. Remember, sales is the Y value. So in this case, you'd plug 3,000 in for the Y, and then you'd solve for X. So you'd plug 3,000 in for Y, subtract 230 over, and then divide both sides by 210. So make sure you understand when to plug in what when you're doing predictions. Okay, then we move to our last section, section 7. Start with number 45. This is all about inverses. So find the, I think I'm just going to, I'll do them. So 7, 3.5, 6.2, 8, negative 4, 2.7, and negative 12, 1.4. Okay, so they say here's a relation, find the inverse of the relation. So the inverse, when it is ordered pairs, is very straightforward. You just flip which one's X and which one's Y. So I just put 3.5 first and 7 second. Put in 8 first, 6.2 second. 2.7 first, negative 4 second. 1.4 first, negative 12 second. So this second line is my answer. That is the inverse of these points. 47 gives us a table. I am just going to show you that one. So same process, we just flip the x and the y. So instead of -4 first, we put 2.7 first, -4 second. We flip this order and put 3.8 first and -1 second. We put 4.1 first and 0 second. 72 first and 3 second. So when it's ordered pairs or a table, you literally just flip the x and the y. Okay, so on 49, we're going to find the inverse of an equation. So there's specific steps we take for this. First step is if they write in f of x, we change it to a y. The second step is we swap the x and the y. And the last thing we have to do is get y by itself. So I'm going to first subtract 10 from both sides. You get x minus 10 equals 5 over 11 times y. Then, to get rid of the 11, I'm going to multiply both sides by 11. You will have to put parentheses around the x minus 10. And you can distribute if you want to, but you don't have to. So I get 11 times x minus 10 equals 5y. Then I'll divide both sides by 5. And you can write it this way where it's all of it divided by 5, or you can just put it 11 over 5. So again, this way is fine. You can write it that way or this way. And as our final thing, instead of writing y, we write the inverse of f of x. So again, this notation or this symbol just means the inverse of f. So our steps are to change f of x to y, swap the x and the y, get y by itself, and then replace the y with the inverse of f of x. Okay, so we'll follow those same steps on number 50. It's f of x equals 3x plus 8. So we replace the f of x with y. We swap the x and the y. Then we get y by itself. I subtract 8 from both sides to start with. Then I divide both sides by 3. Now you do have to put the whole thing over 3, because you're not just dividing x by 3, you're not just dividing 8 by 3, but you're dividing the whole thing by 3. And so for our final step, we change the y to the inverse of f of x. (51) f of x equals -4x minus 12. We change the f of x to a y. We swap the x and the y. And then we get the y by itself. To do that, I need to add 12 to both sides. And then divide both sides by -4. So x plus 12 divided by -4, and we change the y to be the inverse of f of x. All right, last one. We've come a long way. 52. F of x equals 1/4 x minus 7. So our first step, as it has been all along, is to replace the f of x with y. Then we swap the x and the y. Now we need to get y by itself. So I'll start by adding 7 to both sides. And then I got to get rid of this 1/4. You can divide both sides by 1/4, but the same thing as dividing by 1/4 is multiplying both sides by 4. Because again, this is 4 over 1, so those 4's will cancel out, leaving us 4 times x plus 7. And you're allowed to distribute, but you don't have to. And you replace the y with the inverse of f of x.